Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome to Sort of Smarter. Today we're going to tear down this. It kind of is an overbuilt jump box. It has a lot of other gadgets on it. This was given to me by my best friend. He bought it many years ago. I think there's a date code on it. Let's see here. It is October 2010. The battery inside it no longer takes a charge, and well, it charges and charges and charges and charges and charges and never reaches a full state of charge anymore. It says it's fully charged, and when you hook it on to jump it, it dies instantly, so it's probably got a bad cell in it. It's, 7 years old now. It's been trickle charged to death, and this just has a lot of gadgets on it for a jump box. It has a compressor, which still works, a work light, a couple of 12-volt power sockets on it. This is the charging socket here, which was always really annoying because you had to open the lid to put the charge socket on it, and when it reached full it never shut itself off. And on the back side of it, which was really neat, is it has a 400 watt inverter. And so that was always really nice. And then a USB outlet. And the unusual part was you could never have you either had to have the USB on, or you had the inverter on. But and then of course you had to turn on the jumper. The jumper on this thing was actually really cool. This was a really nice box when it worked. Decent sized cables. I'm not sure what the gauge was on these cables. 105C rated, 6 gauge cables. I think my neighbor's Honda has 6 gauge cables for his battery cables. But yeah, this thing's been used many years, abused. A little duct tape. But we're going to tear it apart, see how many pieces and parts we can salvage out of it, see what we can keep, what's good to keep, what's not good to keep, and what we can make use out of it. And I shall be back momentarily with a proper size socket with that. Alrighty. Now that I got the right size wrench, let us try to disengage that without shorting out both terminals. There's not much juice left in this battery, but I do not want to find out how much is left. Yeah, unlike the new jump boxes of today that rely on a really high amp hour discharge, this one's more of a high capacity over a longer period of time. Kind of the reverse of the way they are now. You know, the newer ones are the get it done quick. We don't need it to last a long time. I don't know which, I guess it depends on what which you like better. This does make the pack heavier, but it means you can run an inverter on it and run an air compressor and have a lot more accessories and charge have the USB outlet and charge your iPhone and iPad and all kinds of stuff on it for a longer period of time. Those small ones are really nice because they can jump your car in an instant, and you can store it in your glove box. But in some aspects, I think those lithium packs can be dangerous. Oh my. So that is a very big battery. Just a regular, these come in those little power cars that you get for your kids. Just a sealed lead acid battery. 14.4 to 5 volts, standby, 13.5. 5.4 amp, do not short. Just a sealed lead acid battery. It's probably just got a dead cell in it. 18 amp hour. That's probably the single most expensive thing in this whole unit. And technically you could reorder a new one of those and put this back together and have a good unit. But I have no intentions on I've got one of those small jump packs, and I don't need a big bulky unit like this. Besides, I got a big diesel truck and these don't even work that well on it either. So pull off this positive cable here. Cut the zip tie off of here. It's got this little tiny wire on here. That's the sense wire that goes up to the gauge to tell that little gauge where its voltage rating is at when you push the test button, so that you can see how full it is. Oops, sorry, probably getting my head in that shot again. I have a really bad habit of sticking my head in the way. Sorry guys, call it newbie. Yeah, as you can see, it's a nice heat shrunk, pretty decent clamp, and probably total length, that's probably 4 feet of a 6-gauge cable on that in there, so that's nice to keep. Set that aside. Now we can get that open a little bit more. You can see there a lot of electronics. There's the air compressor. This is the back side of that load switch. That's the inverter. All the MOSFETs on. We'll take a look at that in a second here. Let's finish unbolting that power switch. I'm going to make a nice high current switch. I'm knocking stuff off the workbench here. I don't know what the amperage rating is on the switch. I hope it's a decent current. That'd be nice for some other projects. Nice short cable here. It's probably 6 gauge as well. It isn't marked, but that's again nice heat shrink on the end. Looks like it's a copper plated steel. I don't know if you can see. They look like brass, but I don't know if I can get that to focus for you or not. That'll focus. Focus, focus, focus. I don't know if you can see where that nut tightened up on there, right in that corner. It got shiny where it scraped the copper plating off of there. So, I don't know if I have a magnet. Oh, I do. I got a small screwdriver set here. Let's see, I've got a small magnet here. Let's see if that... Yeah, there's a magnet. That magnet sticks to her, so it's just copper plated steel. They're making it look like a nice copper or brass terminal on it, just to make you feel better, I guess, which is weird because nobody's looking inside it. I suppose it could be for corrosion protection. A couple screws on there. Let's put those screws. No, there is no numbers and no markings on that switch at all. Huh. So yeah, I don't, I guess whatever the maximum working load of this unit would be a safe assumption for the peak load on this. I guess the maximum load of that battery. This is a nice 12 volt DC fan. This fan comes on every time you turn on the inverter. It doesn't come on any other time, so it's not, well, it doesn't come on while you're charging it or anything, only for the inverter. It's not temperature controlled, so it just comes on automatically. And they've got this stupid plastic coated paper pinched under the edge of the fan here to direct the airflow. I think to try to keep the airflow correctly going where it needs to belong. I think in the Chinese factory this thing must have been an expensive, a labor-intensive unit to build. Very hands-on. And the front fan blade just fell out. I don't know if that fan was working very well. Kind of unusual. I just heard it turn on when I first fired it up. I know I used a screwdriver to pry it out, but I wasn't that. I wasn't aggressive with it. Oh, good grief. That fan just fell right out. I think the screen was holding it in. There's a snap ring clip on it, but I think the snap ring... Yeah, no. Oh my, cheap fan. So let's see if we can get this. Sorry, head in the shot, I know. So let's see if I can get that zoomed in at all. Whoop, if that'll focus. That's Auto Tech inverter. Very crappy solders on this thing. This looks like it's all hand soldered across here. These traces for the MOSFETs across here where they've added the extra extra solder. And this is a very here's the temperature sensor for the board control. This is a very basic, very crude, probably an extremely noisy inverter. Date code on it says 2006, December 1st, 2006. And I cannot see, not a very big wire for the ground or the power. Less than a 10 gauge wire. No markings on it. We'll have to hook that up to the oscilloscope on a different video and see what that's screen for the fan. See what kind of noises we get, how bad it looks. Maybe we can put some different filters in it, see if we can make it any better, see if it's worth it. Maybe we can put a larger some more MOSFETs in it. It does have an adjustment pot here on the side, a couple of them on here. We've got a couple adjustment pots on here, so we could probably trim the voltages on it under load and off load to compensate. So it might be an interesting inverter to play with. We'll make a different video on that one. That might be fun to work with. So we'll take this out as a whole unit here. And that's a big diode. What's the size of that? That guy. I don't know if I can. Where's my phone at? Let's see if we can. Let's see if we can see the number on that one. Thanks to a big Clive, you got an app on here called Magnifying Glass. And that, we're going to give that a shot and see what let's see if that focuses in on there. Oh my. Well, that's a hell of a little app there. My phone will focus on it. Well, you know, I can't get anything to focus these days, but... yeah, I can't see the numbers on that, as usual. But, anyway, enough with that. So, it looks like the USB board also has its own inductor and a little 8-pin chip and a diode. So we'll do a little mini teardown on that on later. So it looks like it's got its own built-in separate power circuit off of the switch, power switch for that. Yeah, very interesting on that. We'll do a separate video on that inverter. That could be something cool. So let us take the compressor out. Let's dump these screws out and get the screws. Let's take more room to work here. And what do we got left here? We got the negative cable here. Let's get that out. Yeah. That looks like that comes undone on the sides here. I'm not even sure where he bought this thing. I think this might have been at Costco. It's a great Costco purchase. For those who don't know what Costco is, it's a warehouse store you purchase a membership for and you buy everything in bulk. I don't know that it's a better savings. I don't know that it saves a whole lot more money, other than the fact that you're buying everything in huge bulking items. It's just me and my wife now. Now that all my kids are grown and out, I don't have the need to buy toilet paper and giant 80-pack rolls. I'll tell you what, you have a household full of 4 girls, there's a negative cable, and you will find a way to go through toilet paper like you own stock in the paper mill. And if you try to complain to them about it, it's a losing endeavor. You will pay dearly. Just go with it. Buy more paper. Don't argue. Don't even try to explain it. Alright, let's see here. Oh. Well, now that's interesting. that was off the positive. This is off the positive of the battery, going to the back of, these are the backs of the 12-volt outlet, power outlets. They look like the cigarette lighter sockets. And that is, they call it the PTC. That's actually really kind of nice. So this is a positive temperature coefficient. Basically it's a resettable fuse. So as the current ramps up, this reaches a certain temperature and then limits the current automatically and dissipates this heat. It may not be completely accurate on its description, but it's basically how they control from pulling 100 amps out of these sockets and melting down this unit without putting a fuse in here. And they use this. It's actually kind of a nice device, and that's neat to have. And actually, I do need a socket like this. I had gotten, my wife came home the other day and we got a flat tire on the truck, and I have 34-inch tires on the truck, and I found the bolt or the hole in the tire and was just going to go to the tire store and get it fixed. And so I aired up the tire with a little mini compressor, and it wasn't enough to blow the fuse. It's a 20 amp fuse, which is the proper fuse for the socket, but it ended up melting or damaging somehow the actual socket to the outlet. So I now need to replace my socket in the dash of my truck. So this will work quite nicely. It's got a whole bunch of negative wires we are just going to cut out. I don't care about the ground wires. Know that I need the weatherproof part of it, but we'll keep it all together. That, that, and that. And that would be 12-volt socket. And this apparently powers everything in here. So it's the thermal fuse for apparently the motor and everything on here. Let's see if we can see that. I don't know if that'll focus. There we go. Yep. So that is the brushed DC motor, single piston compressor. Nice long little hose, probably 3-foot hose on it. Put that in the junk bin for another project somewhere down the way. Now it's got a percentage of charge. I guess if you're using it for a 12-volt battery system, wouldn't be too bad. Array of LED lights. Everybody surely needs that, right? Giant red button to a tiny tactile switch. Alright, so from today's teardown, we ended up with a somewhat dodgy 400 watt inverter, which we'll put through a test on a different video. We ended up with a positive and negative 6 gauge cables with some nice alligator clamps on the end of them, 4 feet long. We've got a mini compressor with a gauge mounted to it, tire inflator. We've got probably a 600 amp intermittent, probably a 100 amp continuous DC on-off load switch, a couple of very basic rocker switches, a couple of DC sockets, DC meter, some little LEDs. Not too bad. And a useless 7-year-old lead acid battery. Although I do have a desulfator on my trailer that I'm going to try to hook up to this and see if it won't desulfate it and bring it back to life maybe, and get a good charge back up on it, see if it doesn't bring some life back into it. No promises, no loss if it doesn't. Not that concerned about it, but anyway, fun little teardown, and get some good videos out of some of this junk when we put it into something else. Anyway, YouTube, have a great day. See you next time.